Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard, and with me as always, we got James Maxwell, we got Ty Lee, and we're here to talk about an absolute stomping. The Sooners rolled over the Cornhuskers 49-14. And this one was just remarkable. I think all of us had some hopes that this would be a good game, but this was just an absolute blowout, other than like three tough drives. So let's get this thing started. Jameson, you had your kind of first reaction pod yesterday, but what was your reaction to that game? Were you surprised to see how OU performed?
Yeah, I actually was. I did not think that our defense was going to play that way. Obviously, that first drive gave us some hiccups, made us think for a little bit. Oh no, this could be something like the Big Noon. Did you see all the Big Noon's predictions, Bobby? Pretty much all of them had it close, and two of them, Reggie Bush and Urban Meyer, had Nebraska winning that game, which was absolutely comical. Well, I mean, I understand one of the four people being close, but really?
That's insane.
Urban's trying to suck up to the donors so that his contract he's about to sign has a little juicier. And he wants the players to stay.
Urban was just sitting there. He looked like he was in another galaxy. He had the transition sunglasses on.
He had
looking, I was like, what
the uncut gems. He had the uncut gems look going.
He's just sitting here thinking like, oh man, how quick can I just get to my my pub in Dublin, Ohio?
It literally looked to me like he was Urban Meyer doing a Halloween costume of Adam Sandler from Uncut Gems.
Unreal. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
that's wild. I can't believe they did that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I can. It really was, and I think Reggie Bush kind of hedged it at halftime. He was like, I was kind of buying into the hype of the home crowd and the energy and everything. They just being, typical media people and just playing the part. But all four of them had Nebraska covering, so the whole Big Noon cast didn't think much of this game in terms of Oklahoma. And Oklahoma shut up all the naysayers and shut me up too in terms of the offensive line play and a lot of my defensive kind of concerns. Offensive line looked great, especially the left side. I think McCabe Metallier played really well, and Anton Harrison played amazing. That kind of game is where NFL scouts will look at him as a possible high-end draft pick. And then the defense, I said that the past couple episodes, I'm not going to form an opinion on this defense that is legitimate until I see them versus a high-powered offense with skilled players like Nebraska, and we shut them down after that first drive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, that was something that, to me as well, Nebraska, obviously they have their faults. They have their issues. That is a broken, not very good football team. But up until, yesterday, their offense was always the best part. They could always move the ball down the field. And that went across the board for every single game they played. But wow, that just an absolute dominating performance on defense. Just absolutely stepped up. What Brenton Venables has been able to do in just a short offseason is remarkable. And you got to give a lot of credit to him, to Ted Roof, Miguel Chavis, all those guys just really have completely changed this defense around. Total 180 in just a short time. Ty, what'd you think?
Yeah, I had a couple big things that jumped to mind, and fortunately they're not super surface level, but they're good sort of teasers for what we're about to dive into. One was adjustments and our ability to adjust to people. Like we said, we started out really slow. We started out really slow last week as well, and obviously with a sample size of two, even including our first game, 3 games that were very, very weak opponents. And you certainly would not expect a team that just fired their head coach only days before to be able to have a coaching staff that can make in-game adjustments very well. But it seems like we are a team that is becoming very, very good, both defensively and especially offensively, at making in-game adjustments, which is really exciting because that's something that we've seen in the past 10 or so years with the teams that have been winning championships. They've been teams that have always known or have always been known to adjust really well. Think of it like the stereotypical Nick Saban teams. In close games, he will generally win the second half because he is able to adjust and his staffs are able to adjust. And then other than that, this is kind of a weird one. Not necessarily sure how much it applies, but I felt, at least from watching it, Bobby, I'm sure you'll be able to report a little bit more having gone, but I felt that there was a lot of respect with this game from outside viewership, even though it wasn't necessarily a lot of people, I guess, in the media. College Game Day kind of did the same. They were expecting it to be a little bit closer, which is in hindsight funny, especially considering all the Nebraska factors. But there was a lot of respect for the tradition and the history of this game from OU fans, from what I was seeing, and saw that from our viewer and listener responses, but then also just the national media and fans of the sport and fans of the other teams as well. But then respect from the teams on the field. We got to see what I will call 2.5 quarters of football game, because at like 7 minutes to go in the third, the game was over and it became a mutual practice time for both teams. And we sort of respected that. We definitely could have held them to 7. They earned that first 7. And, the guys that went out there and scored again earned their second 7, but it was backups, and it was guys that normally don't get play on both sides of the ball for both teams out there getting some reps in, and the entire mood certainly on TV seemed like it shifted, and you could see a lot of coaching happening with Nebraska and their quarterback, or their backup quarterback as well, and some of their other guys, and the same on OU side. And there was that mutual respect of hey, we've got this. We're not going to continue to run up the score on you guys. We were trying not to score actively a lot of the time, and just getting people reps. And I think respect is a good one-word summary for this game. Respect what OU did, respect our performance, and respect the rivalry, and the teams respected each other. It was beautiful to see.
Yeah, no, I think the respect factor absolutely there. And I think, to me as well, like, it was clear that Nebraska really, they still, and OU both still cared about this rivalry. I think there was a question. We talked about this last week. Does this rivalry still really mean anything? Does it have any bearing? And it's clear, being in Lincoln that entire weekend, that it's something that they missed, that they really appreciated. The respect was off the charts, especially on the fan side of things. Nebraska has one of the best fan bases in college football, hands down. The amount of just random fans being like, oh, it's good to see you all again. And even after the game, being like, y'all played a really good game. Congratulations. Just genuinely like super nice about everything, super complimentary towards OU. It was awesome. The in-game presentation as well. Obviously, like, the intro they ran essentially was an intro for OU and Nebraska, kind of talking about both teams like legends side by side. So it'd be like Switzer and Osborne and all these legends next to each other. I'm like, this is a little nice, but okay, yeah, it felt like they put a lot into the presentation of welcoming OU back, and that's something I thought that was really cool. It's truly just a special, different place. And I highly, highly recommend to any OU fans who didn't make the trip this year, on the return trip, I believe in 2030, definitely try to make that, because this is a special, special game, a special place, awesome town. I absolutely loved it. But no, that respect factor, though, I think you're right. We've never really seen, or we've seen really in the past 3 games, that when OU gets ahead, Brent's not the type of guy who will try to step on your neck and, really run it up, really embarrass you. He sends in Davis Bevel to hand it off a bunch of times. And I'll say this, I feel like their management up a lot is better than Lincoln's, just in terms of like, we're not going to make mistakes. We're just going to run boring, crappy offense, not get fancy with it. Just try to run the clock down. And I think it worked in that aspect, but also I don't think you could be like, oh, Davis Bevel, that second half when we took off the our foot off the pedal was awful, because they weren't trying. They weren't trying to really score. They were just trying to run the clock down. So I agree with you. I think the respect was definitely there, and just a really cool day.
Now, Nebraska put out their second unit before OU did, so let that just be known. Chuba Purdy came in the middle of the third quarter and absolutely floored me. That just surprised me, because I feel like in a game like this, especially in the first time head coaching job of Mickey Joseph, he would rat it out with Casey Thompson. But Chuba Purdy is one of the better backup quarterbacks in college football. He was a high-end guy that people were looking in the transfer portal, a guy that OU was even looking at too as that backup quarterback, and he ended up going to Nebraska. So I don't know how much of it was them throwing in the towel that early, or more so they just wanted to get a different look.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question for sure.
I think watching it back, I think he came in individually initially. So I think it may have been.
Okay.
He
did,
I think
you're right.
I think maybe Nebraska was like, "Hey, let's try to change stuff up initially," and then, but
Why not?
very quickly, I think they realized when they saw what we were doing. It seemed, but maybe they did have the same idea first. I will say,
Yeah.
Chuba Purdy was frightening at first to hear that, because I thought that they had some sort of like Avengers type combination of Chuba Hubbard and Brock Purdy, like some sort of lab created anti-OU mutant. Like they're like, we'll combine Chuba Hubbard and Brock Purdy into the one player that can defeat OU. They would have needed like a Kansas State, a Thompson as well on there, maybe, to really pose a
Colin
threat.
Klein.
Throw in a Lockett.
Yeah, Lockett. Yeah, Lockett. That's what I meant.
Yeah. But for sure. That is pretty funny. And he looked okay, 7 for 11, kind of just dinked and dunked. He didn't look any worse.
He should have had 2 turnovers, though. He should have had 2 turnovers. He was a little bit errant out there. I really like the way our defense played in the second half, but kind of getting back on track, let's just kind of talk about the overall defensive group, kind of like we usually do with each episode. First, I mean, I was really proud of how this defense played. And, guys, how I said last week, who was the best player on the field by the eye test? And I thought it was Danny Stutzman. By the eye test for me, I thought it was Billy Bowman this game. I thought he was all over the field. He's making good tackles. He was making sure nothing went off the top of him after that first drive. I was really impressed by the way he played, and I see a very clear leader in him in the defensive back room, and then a very clear leader with Stutzman in the linebacker room.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible. Bowman has been probably our best, most consistent player the entire season. I will say, I test the guy who popped out to me initially, and probably can't give him a game ball now because he got ejected. Deshaun White, I thought he was all over the field. He looked awesome. Definitely his best performance I saw in the Sooner uniform. But obviously that ejection for targeting, not great, not ideal. Thankfully, we didn't need him too much after that.
It's kind of a blessing, though, because Jaron Canick coming in at that cheetah position behind him, overtaking Justin Harrington. Man, did he look fire in that rest of the game. Honestly, I would not be surprised if he is barking at Deshaun White's starting job right now.
Oh, yeah. Canick looked awesome. Ty, what do you think?
Well, I did. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of my individual make sure we mention this points. I wanted to address it because it was just one of those, and obviously, someone may feel differently, but he didn't hit him that hard, and it didn't really look all that intentional. Obviously, you can criticize the way the hit ended up occurring, because at the end of the day, what occurred is what occurred. But it was just sort of one of those, like, hey, the rule's here for safety. Like it clearly was not malicious on his end. And it didn't certainly seem too dangerous. It was one of those, like, hey, it's in the rule book. We got to follow the rule book. It fits the criteria. Like it didn't seem, back to the respect thing. There didn't seem to be much sort of animosity there or anything. So it did certainly seem to me like he was going in and sort of, it's a very quick game, the football, as those that watch it know, but it seemed like he just sort of had slightly misjudged the distance and the angle that he was approaching from, because if you watch it, his head is coming up as he's actually initiating the contact. And he was just sort of in the motion, and it was like sort of a bang bang play, but just enough that it was negative. But he had a game for getting ejected, still was tied for the lead in solo tackles, and I think he was third or fourth on overall tackles, even even before getting ejected from the game. So that was, who knows what his stats would have looked like if he continued. And it almost makes me, not to doubt the person that came in place of him, but it almost makes me think that maybe that position specifically was really able to outperform, I guess, whoever they would have been typically matching up with on Nebraska's O-line. In a lot of situations, because if you put anyone in the same position and they're sort of overperforming more than they usually do, it might be the other side of the map and the moves that they're making. But excellent game by both guys.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is that Nebraska offensive line was just utterly atrocious. Awful awful offensive line performance from them. And, I got to say, OU's defense just ran wild on them. And, I don't know what was going on there, but, essentially after that first Nebraska drive, they were just all over Casey Thompson, all over that backfield. It was really awesome to watch. Jaron Kanek led the team with 10 tackles total, but yeah, you're right. Deshaun White shared second place with Key Lawrence and David Agwebu, both having 6. And then he shared the lead for solo tackles with 4 with Key Lawrence. So definitely great performance. Ty, what did you think about Bowman? His performance? I know me and Jameson kind of talked about it a little bit, but your thoughts?
Yeah, he had another just a really solid game. And this one I think maybe is the more indicative one of performances down the road, because like we talked about, this was the numbers, I guess, sort of bear it out, and obviously a lot of unfortunate circumstances and extenuating circumstances for Nebraska. But this was the best offense that we've seen so far, and this is a team that has been really stumbling this year, but you can't discount last year where they did perform admirably in a lot of situations. And, Casey Thompson, a guy who he's never beaten OU, but he's given us fits plenty of times. And it was really good to see. So it's really good to see this sort of upward trajectory, and actually like our schedule as I look at it right now for Bowman and for everyone on the OU defense, because we have it's almost like curriculum style, I would say. And I'm not trying to be too much of a homer. I know we're going to get kicked in the teeth at some point, and we're going to have some gut punches. They come down the road, but we have a schedule right now that is very conducive towards we're easing into things, and we're almost seeing one, if you're looking at it from the defensive side, we're seeing sort of one threat easy at a time. We're getting those practice problems in, and this was sort of our practice problem, quarterbacks that can maybe give us fits in some situations, and we performed really well. And right before I hand it off to you guys, I feel like he gets forgotten because we have so many new names that are really performing. But Ogwebu, another good game. All the linebackers having good games. He's been a guy that we've seen for a couple years on OU, and he's continuing to perform. I think it's just sort of getting overshadowed storyline-wise because we have these flashy new names that are coming out here like Danny Stutzman.
I think that's very fair. Yeah, really good game from Agwebu as well. Jameson also wanted to mention a name that I kind of mentioned a little bit there. Key Lawrence, he has been kind of missing some time with injuries. We weren't sure if he'd play, but he got the green light, and I thought he played very well. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he slotted into the starting lineup back where he was in the first game in this next game versus Kansas State on Saturday. He didn't get the start with Justin Broyles being in that spot to start the game, and then he finished it out. And I thought the way he played in the second half, he was playing like one of the best players on the field. He should have had 2 interceptions. He got 1, but he should have had 2 versus Chuba. And it just seems like he's a difference maker out there. I think Justin Broyles is a great guy. He's a high energy guy, great leader. He does what he needs to do, but Key Lawrence can be a difference maker on the defense. And to have those type of guys, especially opposite another guy that's been passing my eye test right now, and Billy Bowman, I think that's our most pinnacle safety group. I'm very curious to see what we do coming in with starting lineups on Saturday versus K-State.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty cool that we're now in a position where it's you can switch it up, where there are questions about who will play, simply because we have a lot of good players now, a lot of good performers, rather than, we just got to throw him in there because he's the best option we have. The good old Buki era, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. Very good.
Oh, I miss those days. Those were the fun days. Every podcast was an adventure in the Buki era.
Oh yes, it was. We loved
that. Do as we move on, I do want to touch on real quick a point you just made, Bobby. I don't know necessarily that we have anyone that is really super standout on the defense. I don't know if we have like a guy that's going to eventually end up being a sort of a big NFL performer or prospect. Obviously, anything can happen, but
especially not this year.
I'm trying to think of the right term, but there is tremendous depth within the defense. It's everyone is at a very consistent level, and none of it is really disappointing. Everyone is, I would say, good. I would rate everyone as good if we're going back to the letter grades that we like to use. I think no one on the defense right now has below a B, certainly. So that is really, really good, because I would much rather, and I'm sure people that know a lot more about football than I would agree, I would much rather have an entire defense where everyone is good than a defense where, you know, one side of the field is great, the other side of the field is really questionable. That goes back to my classic, it's better to be a wide receiver number 2 at the college level, because a lot of defenses are forced into this. Here's our best guy, we'll match up with their best guy and then hope for the best with the rest situation. When it comes to defensive matchups, it's a tremendous advantage for us if we have a depth and a parity of skill across the board. It eases planning and scheming, and it makes things like injuries much less significant. So I think that's an advantage. I think a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not seeing a whole lot of standout stars," but I'm seeing maybe not a whole bunch of standout stars. We might not have a North Star, but we certainly have a constellation of stars that are bright enough to lead the way. We have a Big Dipper.
Yeah, I like it. And I think that's kind of indicative of what this OU team as a whole is. You know, it's not as, you know, flashy, as star heavy. You know, I don't think they're, you know, Gabriel, for example, is a guy who could win a Heisman. But the thing is, you know, throw the flash out. It doesn't matter. What this team has is balance. They are pretty dang good at every single aspect of the game, from offense, defense, special teams now has taken a shine, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. But I think consistency, overall balance is something that really shines through on this team. And I think it's an absolute strength. Yeah, they don't have the flashiest guys. Just look at the preseason, all Big 12 teams. You know, I think OU and Kansas both had one, and that was it. But at the end of the day, I feel like the unit as a whole feels quite a bit better than it was last year, despite the lack of, I guess, like you said, lack of stars. It's a good damn constellation for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to say it. Overall, for my game ball for this game, honestly, it's tough. It really is, because there's no obvious stat pusher that we kind of look at. There wasn't like big turnover that changed this game. It was kind of just cruise controlling. And I thought that Billy Bowman looked the best in terms of the eye test in the first half. And that's what I think means the most in terms of who deserved the game ball, because the game was won in the first half. The game was not won in the second half. The game was won in the first half. And I thought Billy Bowman, the way he played, even on those intangible things, just being in the right place, the right time, making all of the right movements in the back end, he gets my game ball.
Yeah, 100%. And I will also want to shout out, the defensive line was great as well. I thought Ethan Downs had an incredible performance. And obviously, you know, Redmond had that really massive sack that's hanging out in our thumbnail. And then, hey, we got a little bit of a Jonah Lualu action as well. So D-line definitely gets should get a lot more respect than we might have accidentally not given them in terms of conversation distribution. But damn, they were good. And it's hard not to give the game ball to Bowman, but I got to give it to Bowman. I think he was just so balanced, so good, best player in the field. It would have been Deshaun White if he didn't get ejected, but no, I'm giving it to Bowman. So
yeah, real quick, I will say on the D line, I kind of thought about that coming into this pod, and it was just a game that wasn't conducive to the D line really being able to show their skills from the threat that Nebraska presented to us, and then from our scheme and the way we were combating what they presented to us. It was just, we had a scheme and matchups that were very conducive to the linebackers having really good stats and having a big highlight reel stuff. And just the way that the matchups occurred and panned out, the D-line had an excellent game, an excellent performance. But it was just one of those, you know, the stereotypical line thing of you're in the trenches and you're grinding and you have to give 100% effort every play. There's no sitting there shuffling, watch the quarterback's eyes. It doesn't come your way. You relax. When you're on the line, you know, and you're out there, you're giving 100% or you're getting pancaked and everyone can see it. So D-line, great game. And just sort of it didn't pan out, you know, didn't come their way in terms of being able to show off. But I will say that my defensive game ball, and I'm not trying to be contrarian or stir the pot, but I will go Deshaun White. It would be a little more emphatic if he had meant to hit him, if he had meant to hurt him. I'm a big, shout out Sean Payton. I think we should do bounties for people, but I'm
NIL bounties. Now there's
NIL
something
bounties. Yeah. I have.
If you take out someone else that has a higher NIL than you get NIL.
I will. God, I want to be a donor one day, and I can donor match. I'll do that. I'll have a bounty, like a prize bounty, and if you take out an opposing player, I will give you whatever their 1 year of NIL is. That'll really motivate the boys.
Can we start our own collective? Collective?
I feel like this is a big gray area. But so here was the thing with bounties, right? Bounties were illegal because it was the teams doing it. I feel like NIL is being slept on because everyone has the whole NIL is legal because it's not the schools or the teams doing it. They're talking about paying the players. I think that same legal justification can be used for bounties. So we'll have to discuss this when Blake is on. But Deshaun White, excluding that will be certainly a mark against him if we're being serious. But for having a short game from what was already a short game for everyone and still standing out on the stats, and he's a guy that we haven't been able to recognize with one thus far this year. So give me Deshaun White defensive game ball with an asterisk next to it, of course.
Yeah, fair enough. I like it. Good picks all around. Jared Kanak also close, but not quite there, it seems. He did have that fumble recovery, but it just kind of popped out in front of him. So good game for Kanak as well. All right, let's move on to the offense. An incredible performance. Beyond that, kind of nervy first drive where I feel like, honestly, the atmosphere was incredible. It I think really kind of was something OU as a whole had to overcome because it was loud, it was noisy, but they had the wherewithal to, bounce back on it, make big plays. That Dylan Gabriel run was wild. But overall, great performance. 49 points, could have been way, way more. And let's just start it. Let's just start with the man behind the center, Gabriel. So Jameson, first of all, I didn't know he could run like that. I don't know if he knew he could run like that, but what were your thoughts on Gabriel's game? Certainly, I think the best performance we've seen him in a Sooner uniform. And I don't know, how would you grade it, or how would you look at it?
I'd give it a B+. I wouldn't give it an A just yet because there are still some of those misfires that he had where I've been kind of questioning his accuracy that he still had. But he had a couple of balls that were right on the money. I think the deep ball to Marvin Mims that got the pass interference was a beautiful ball and was right in the breadbasket if it wasn't interfered with. And that, that QB draw play, the first thing that went to my head, and I know I saw a lot of other people had the same thought in my head whenever I was on Twitter, is Jeff Lebby just going to call it like he's Matt Corral? Like, that's a Matt Corral play that we saw millions and millions and millions of times at Ole Miss. And I don't think, Dylan Gabriel is not like that, but he shows he can. He was aggressive with that run. He didn't want to go down. He rode the sideline. He cut inside. Like, he's a runner that can. He's not the best runner, but he showed he has that can part of the running.
He's like the little engine that could, he just keeps pushing on. And I think that's admirable. I think he's a competitor, but you're right. There are issues. Like I feel like he kept throwing a little too high. He was missing guys a little high there.
Really bad ones. Yeah.
Yeah. But for every bad play like that, there's at least like two that are just absolute dimes. That for me, that touchdown to Weiss, I believe that was his last touchdown. Mm-hmm. Absolutely on a rope to the man. It was beautiful.
The only place you could throw it to. He had to throw that a little bit behind and low, and it was right then and there. It's just a consistency thing with him.
Yeah, and I think that just that's something that I feel like we've seen him be more consistent. Like the consistency has grown. It's just definitely not there yet. So I don't know. It was encouraging to me, especially on the road, tough environment. But I'm with you. He's not a finished product yet. Ty, what did you think about Gabriel's game?
Yeah, so I want to say this as respectfully as possible, but I think analogies are a good way of describing things, especially on the medium that we discuss things. And I think sometimes analogies can be taken incorrectly. But one of the things, or analogies can sometimes seem to be a bit more disrespectful than they're intended to be. And a lot of the times I do mean much disrespect to the players that we talk about. And I will tell this to their faces if I see them on campus, just to clarify.
Okay.
But Dylan Gabriel, I say this with respect. It's very much helped me watching the game and sort of helped my understanding of our offense. And I think maybe to some extent he might not think about it this way, but I think Levy, looking at the way he schemes, may think about it this way. When I look at Dylan Gabriel, I had this idea of the stereotypical OU quarterback, like we've been talking about, the guy that's going to be at the Heisman ceremony, whether he's the favorite or the not, because he's going to be doing electric things. He's going to have great performances. He's going to be the chippy, plucky guy pulling out the Sooner magic. I mean, Baker Mayfield, in my mind, is the stereotypical OU quarterback. I think, I'm not saying he's the best, but I see, even going back to Bradford and guys before, you see that sort of same archetype in a lot of ways. Dylan Gabriel, when I was trying to think of him as a stereotypical OU quarterback and fit him into that box and that archetype, just wasn't working. And when I started to think about Dylan Gabriel as a middleman, and this is why I'm saying this respectfully, it really started to help out my understanding of his employment within the offense as the talent that he is and sort of our scheme. I think he is our offensive middleman. I don't think he's necessarily a game manager. I don't think he's necessarily, he could be a leader in the locker room, but I don't necessarily know that he's a sort of a game leader. I see him almost as a middleman. You know, the big eye in the sky is calling the plays, and obviously he has some decision-making ability, but his job is to get the ball from his hands into the talent that's going to make the plays happen's hands, whether that's the running backs or the receivers. Whereas I think, go back to like Kyler Murray or even Jalen Hurts, for example, you put the ball in their hands and they're going to make magic happen. And that's not how I view Dylan Gabriel, and that's not a bad thing. I think he fits that sort of get the ball to the talent role much better.
Yeah, I get that. I think he does kind of have that sort of vibe. I would certainly agree with that. But I think that's one thing that we're gonna have to kind of learn a bit, is that's okay that he's like that. He doesn't have to be this, superhuman hero like that saves us, when we that can bail us out, because as fun as that is, I don't know if that's the best way to I guess sort of run a team. So no, I agree. I think changing your kind of mindset of it, I think definitely is important. Definitely. Yeah, I also, so obviously Gabriel, good performance, but I feel like receiving wise, that was the star of the passing game by far. An insane amount of players went and got catches, and the amount of players who got multiple receptions was also just really cool. I feel like it's as good. This receiving room is as good as it's been. Marvin Mims had another really big game, but also Jaleel Farouk had a big game, and Theo Weiss and Drake Stoops showed up and made those plays that he always makes. And it was great. I loved it. Jameson, what are your thoughts on, I guess, this balance of the receiving game, the receiving core? What would you think of everything?
To be honest, yes, we had a balance in this game on Saturday, but to be honest with you, it's not really as balanced as we've seen in the past, like the recent past. I think Marvin Mims is clearing away Dylan Gabriel's favorite target, and I think he's getting a significant amount of the targets in terms of being a clear wide receiver one. Last year, we talked about I don't even know if there's a clear wide receiver one. We had our arguments about Marvin Mims versus Jaden Hazelwood as wide receiver ones. Like this is not that case anymore. He's clear, but I was really, really proud and happy to see Jaleel Farouk have a better game. It seems like he is a guy who kind of got stuck by the wayside behind Marvin Mims and Theo Weiss. It seems like Dylan Gabriel was looking his way more. And if it wasn't for, a non-accurate pass, I think, Farouk could have had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Farouk absolutely went off. It was good to see him, as someone who has had a lot of Jaleel Farouk like stock ever since like that crazy Alamo Bowl. It was good to see that kind of pay off a little bit more. Ty, your thoughts on the receiving core? I know you've been tough on Theo Weiss in the past. I know, but he had a pretty good game. But overall, what did you think about it?
He wasn't tough. Didn't he get his game ball last week?
He did.
Yeah.
Sorry. Over the offseason.
No, but much more years in the past, and sort of grouping him in with that big three or whatever they were called. 5-star receiver group. But Theo Weiss specifically, he had a big boy. Like that looked like that highlight of the Theo Weiss touchdown catch looked like if you could sort of sanitize it, sort of gray it out, you couldn't tell who's playing who, and you showed that to someone, you'd say, oh yeah, that's a catch by a top 10 receiver in the NFL. That's what it looked like. It was a big boy throw, but it was a big boy catch, more so than it was a throw, because the throw maybe could have been a little better, maybe. Not that I could do better, but the throw certainly, had Tom Brady thrown it, it would not have been where it was.
And it was a lefty quarterback, and you knew that was an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, but that was a big boy high level catch. I would give him that. But I think the receiving core, I sort of alluded to it last week. I had this feeling after Kent State that when it came to the passing attack, it was for the first time in a long time when it comes to OU, the receivers that are making it happen more than the quarterback. And you touched on a good point of Mims being the clear favorite. I think he is. But when I rewatched the highlights, I kind of had a feeling about this during the game. But when I rewatched the highlights, and again, it is an admittedly down bad Nebraska team, but Mims was earning those targets. Those were not, because some of them were really, really, why are you throwing that way, dude? But Mims was out there earning those targets. He was getting open, making plays, burning his guys, running his routes in the way that was taking advantage of the gaps in the coverage and everything else. He was reading the defenses, adjusting to it. It was, the numbers almost don't bear it out, but I think it was another masterclass in being a really, really high level, top 25 team in college football receiver. I don't know if he's a top 25 receiver in college football, but he looks like a WR number one on a top 25 or top 10 team. He looks the part, and he's got an excellent ensemble of receivers behind him. I think we were sort of artificially creating targets for Farouk, like we mentioned. I think in terms of the scheme, sort of putting him out there, putting him in positions where we're like, hey, let's put him in a position where we know he's going to get open, give him some targets, and see how he plays in a game. And I think that was occurring while this was still a game. Like we talked about, it sort of turned into a free practice or a friendly scrimmage towards the end, respectfully. But I think Farouk, I think there was very clearly a deliberate decision by the coaching staff to say, hey, let's get him out there, play him more a WR2 type dude, WR3 type dude, and slot him in and see how he does. And he really showed out as well. But everyone showed out. And yeah, special mention, as always, to Drake Stoops, just being reliable, being there when you need him. He is the receiving core equivalent of like those memes about like, we all have one friend, we can call him up and say, hey, bring a shovel, don't ask any questions type thing from terrible Facebook memes. But that's him as a receiver. It's just nothing else works. He's out there, throw it to him, he'll figure out a way. So
I feel like that terrible Facebook meme would also include minions for some reason. That makes zero.
Yeah,
zero
it would include a minion smoking a cigar.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. No, I mean it was a great day. And Stoops, hearing the Stoops chants on the road, oh, that's so fun. That's always a good time. So really cool, really cool showing from the OU supporters there as well. Let's talk about what I think was the strongest unit of the offense, rushing game. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel had his run, but Eric Gray, incredible performance. 11 carries, 113 yards, average 10 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. What a day for Eric Gray. Javonte Barnes also played well. But to me, Gray was just remarkable. He was unstoppable. I think he also pissed the most amount of Nebraska fans off just because they weren't even getting close to touching him. That's where the most frustration I think I heard was. They're just like, they're not even like close to him. This is ridiculous. So I loved it. Jameson, your thoughts on Eric Gray's big day?
I was really impressed. I really was. I kind of said it in my immediate post-game reaction episode. He wanted to go out and show up. I'm sure that college students and people listen to the media. They look at Twitter. They look at people tweeting about, oh, Marcus Major deserves to be RB1. I haven't been as happy with Eric Gray. Seems like he's trying to get too fancy. I'm sure these guys hear it. And to have a game like this helps his confidence so much, to the point where I feel like he can be his, go out to his full potential. And he exposed the Nebraska poor linebacker play. While Marcus Major had the big highlight reel that got, the video went viral of him juking out the guy into the oblivion last week, Eric Gray put his right foot in the dirt and got a touchdown, absolutely smoked the safety this week. I was really happy the way Eric Gray played. I think he could have even had a bigger game if it was, a more, obviously, if he had more snaps, he'd have more yards. But the way he was playing at the pace he was playing, it could have been ugly if he was going to continue to get snaps for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and it felt like OU was trying to do more on offense just because, when you have a test, you don't want to just do the same thing that works every time. But if they just handed the ball to Gray over and over and over again, that was going to get really bad really quick. Ty, your thoughts on Gray and the rushing game as a whole?
Here's something specifically on Gray to mention. Let me just read off his stats real quick because they are very, very good. So he caught one for 4 yards, but then he went out there and he put up on 11 carries, 113 yards, like you said, averaged 10.3 with 2 touchdowns and a long of 25. But here's the thing. Like we talked about, he certainly didn't play towards the end of the game. I don't know that he was out on the field for much more than those 12 plays that he touched the ball. I really think, like, if you go back, obviously, he was out there for some pass blocks or whatever else. And if you really dive into the point I'm making, it doesn't make much sense because how else is he going to get stats if he doesn't touch the ball? But on pretty much 12 plays, he went out there and put up the stats that he did. If he was out there and was the only guy, because Major was getting a fair share of stuff, and Major was getting sort of drawing the long straw from the draw as well and getting the, hey, you're going to be the guy in the end zone on the trick play for the touchdown reception. Like, that's going to pad your stats, obviously. And I'll talk about Major here in a second. I'm sure we all will. But keeping it on Gray, he got 12 opportunities to show what he could do, and he showed out. Had he been the main dude, because he was, what I'm saying is he was splitting time for the 2.5 quarters that he was out there. I think it was a pretty even 50-50 split. Gray is clearly the RB1. I don't think anyone actually making decisions at OU has any doubts about that. And Gray got some play calls that were just sort of, we're going to run it up your face and sort of gut punch the defense type thing and use it to open up. Had he been out there being the main dude, getting, say, 75% of carries like most main RBs get, and like I expect him to get in big games, his stats would have been insane. So keeping it just on Gray for right now, he had an absolute, the stats don't bear it out. He had a ball game, and it would have been bad for Nebraska. It would have been dirty. It would have been, or we're getting into territory of like, oh goodness, this guy could be, we're talking about some single game records maybe, at least for this rivalry or something like that, or coming into play had we kept on the gas and kept him out there as the main dude.
I believe rivalry-wise, this was one of the best rushing performances, if not the best rushing performance OU has ever had in Lincoln. I saw, or my friend Thomas on the drive back mentioned something like that, but I can't cite it exactly.
Thomas, 100% reliable, trustworthy. always fact checked, triple blinds, peer revied,
randomized control trial.
Yeah, anything that he says.
Always has to be 100% for sure. But no, I mean, it was really good. And Gray got the least of the bell cow backs. So not Gabriel or, like Davis Bevel, just of people who are the legitimate running backs. He got the least amount of carries behind Major and Barnes. So yeah, he could have done a lot more. And it's exciting. It's exciting, and it should be scary for everybody else in the Big 12. That's for sure. Let's talk about Major, because I think Javonte Barnes mainly got his burn in garbage time. What do you think about Major's performance, Jameson?
Same old. I think that we're seeing a very clear role for how he plays. He's coming into the heavy packages. He's going to go get the touchdowns in the goal line. And Eric Gray is going to get us down the field. And the way he's finishing plays is great, obviously. Getting 2 touchdowns, that just seems like it's going to be his motto for the rest of the season. He's becoming a reliable guy. And to think that we were in that position a couple years ago or even last year where, like, Are we going to even be able to utilize this guy? Now we're thinking like this guy might be one of the more reliable guys on our offense.
Oh, absolutely. And he has his role. And you might see 12 carries, 35 yards, and be like, man, I'm not sure about that. But he absolutely has a necessary part to that offense that just, while, it's kind of like Nick Collison, he would have additions to the offense, to the team as a whole, that you might not notice on the stat sheet, but super important. And Major, I thought, did an excellent job. Just
Nick Collison wasn't putting up touchdowns, though.
He got a touchdown. He got a tutty. That's what matters. So I love it.
Nick Collison ain't going to get you any touchdowns for the Thunder. That dude is getting about 6 points and 6 rebounds and 2 assists.
That's fair. That's fair. Maybe not the perfect description there, but Ty, your thoughts on Major?
Yeah, Jameson said something that really rubbed me the wrong way. He said that going back this time last year, we implying all of us.
Oh, you threw him in the dirt, brother.
Major. No, I did. At 2019, I was telling you guys this guy's going to be our guy.
No, but you threw him in the dirt when he went ineligible. You were ready to just leave him.
Because he went ineligible because he forgot to sign up for classes. How does that occur?
Pretty much.
How does that occur at this level? It's absolutely anyone that's been to college or is familiar with the system that exists for starting athletes at the University of Oklahoma. It's almost like you have to actively try not to sign up for classes or have any sort of academic issues. But Major, I really, really liked what I saw because he was getting put in positions to really show out. And that's sort of an advantage of not being the main guy. You can be the guy that goes out there and be the I don't even know what to compare it to. It's sort of like, mom has to be mean with the kids all day and then dad can come home from work and be like, sure, you can have ice cream type thing. That's almost the role that he's playing. He's not the main guy. He's firmly the two. I do not understand. And again, we've had our ups and downs, Marcus Major and I on the podcast, but I've been in the Marcus Major camp truly since 2019. You can go back and listen. I saw the promise there from him, but he is being put in positions where he can make the most of it and sort of minimize the negatives or chances for there to be negatives. But I think he's firmly the two. I don't understand the people saying, oh, he should be the one, because if you flip the script and made him the guy that was having to do those early game before we're adjusting, you're just running it up the middle, trying to hammer people. And then Eric Gray comes in and is the guy that gets to be untouched in the end zone because you called a trick play. People would be making the same argument. Oh, why'd we swap? Gray's the better one, blah, blah, blah. But I think he's firmly the two, but I think that we are seeing much less of a 1-2 system and more of a talent A, talent B sort of package system where we can have sort of different strategies. It's not a perfect comparison, but I think it's fair for OU fans. And it's sort of similar if you look at height and weight stats. Obviously the play and the level of play is very different, but I would very generally for OU fans to sort of be familiar and have that connection in their brain of sort of understanding what I'm trying to say. I would say we're approaching sort of a Mixon Pirine situation where you can make an argument that Pirine was the main guy, right? And I'm not saying that either of them are either of those guys, certainly, or they're at that level where they're presenting the same talents on the field and the same skill sets. But I'm saying the way that we utilize them, where Pirine was the one in that situation for sure. I think, regardless, obviously that was debatable, but it wasn't like a main dude, load management, put in the second guy. Maybe sometimes we put in the second guy to deceive them. I think it's very much a sort of becoming we have our main guy. He's our main dude for sure. But there might be packages where this one's going to fit better and he might be the main situationally. And I think we're looking at more of a package situation than a 1-2 situation is I think that's the best way to say what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And I would also like to say, talking about packages, that
where are we going to go with this one, Bobby?
Well, oh man, that came off wrong. I was not going to go. No, I wasn't going that direction, but speaking of like that heavy package,
goodness.
No, hear me out. That right after that, I believe when they ruled Mims out of the one, and they had that long review, that first kind of play right back to scrimmage, Nebraska immediately called a timeout to reset because they were freaked out. That lineup we put up where we had Chris Murray in the backfield with Braden Willis and then Major, like I wanted to see what the hell was going on with that. That looked wild.
Yeah, they were wilding out there. Honestly, we were just toying around in that first half. I feel like we'd be remiss not to mention the play where Braden Willis threw a touchdown. And obviously there's historical impacts of that, but me with my recruiting angle, let the tight end show out. Malachi Coleman's watching. Lincoln, Nebraska recruit between us and Nebraska. He's watching this game extremely close. And he's seeing how much the tight end's playing well and Braden Willis and seeing how much fun he can probably have in this offense to even throw a pass. Like after that game, Nebraska's got a really uphill battle to try to hold him and keep him in state because I don't see a clear future with that program where they can sell him anything.
Yeah, I mean, not only did they just flat out show him, hey, we let a tight end for a pass, you'll have fun here. But Nebraska doesn't have a head coach. They don't have a hire. They don't have anyone hired, and they won't likely have anything really set for a couple months. Who's recruiting him? Like, I guess Mickey Joseph, but like, still, you don't know if he's gonna have a job. Probably not.
We learned that likable doesn't always mean talented.
Yeah.
I understand that this is just one game. This is his first game coaching in D1, but just because the team was extremely behind him and they were going to go out and fight for him doesn't mean that he is talented enough to make a game plan to shut down OU.
Yeah, that vibes can't overcome just being bad at football. And don't get me wrong, like they had the vibes, they had all of that completely right. I was scared after the first OU and Nebraska's first drive. It felt like this is going to be a damn game. But ultimately OU's talent just was overwhelming and just completely swamped Nebraska. And, credit to OU for not letting this drag on too long or get out of hand. Instead of just being like, we're close, it'll be okay, we're close. OU went in, changed that around ASAP. Brent Venables, that clip of him just yelling at his guys after that first Nebraska touchdown drive, that is what you want to see. You want to see accountability. You want to see that energy. You want to see that light switch flip. And I think that's something that OU was able to, kind of get done. And I think that was huge. Just not passively hoping things get better by doing nothing like, someone else would have done. Anyways, that's kind of beside the point. I'm with you. I think I would be shocked if we don't get Coleman, but also I'd be remiss to not talk about the O-line. Wanya Morris came in first time this season after whatever the hell happened with that. What were your thoughts on the O-line, Jameson, real quick?
Yeah, this is the best game by far that they played. And there's really nothing to compare to it because those first two games, they were ugly. This game looks like they controlled it. It really did. And that's what opened up this whole offense. As you noticed, our running game was really good, and it allowed Dylan Gabriel to even throw some bad throws, be inaccurate, and still have a really, really good game. When your offensive line is playing well, that's the first domino, and it's going to make everything else fall down. But if your offensive line isn't playing well, the running back's not going to get a hole to go up, and they're going to run east and west, and they're going to get tackled for losses, and we're going to be play 2nd and 12. And that's not what Lebby wants to play. Lebby wants to play 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5. That's how he, makes his money as an offensive play caller. And that's the offensive line's job to get him ahead of the downs. And I was really, really proud about, especially how the left side of the offensive line played.
Yeah, absolutely. Ty, any observations on the O-line?
Yeah, here's the thing. What we saw is a really, really solid O-line. Again, game 3, so we're still developing. O-lines are they're an organism in and of they're a 5-cell organism, and they are something that they can sort of grow and evolve, and they get better. They age like a fine wine throughout the season. Obviously, injuries and some other things can play into that, and the grind goes on. But much like the dynamic between a quarterback and his receivers and timing, O-lines, they really sort of that edge sharpens as they go on. So I'm very excited to see where we are at. But I will say this sort of speaks back a little bit to Dylan Gabriel and a little bit towards the game planning. And I don't want to be that guy, but what we saw was what this OU offense needs. We blew them out of the water. We could have kept on the gas. It could have been 77-7 at the end of the day here. But when we face tougher opponents, especially looking at how Texas played Alabama last week, we need an O-line performance like this, because that is what Dylan Gabriel requires to be his best self, or to get the ball within 5 yards of the receiver he's trying to target. And that is what sort of our scheming. We have tremendous running backs, like we just mentioned, but you never can run that well when your O-line isn't doing that well. So our O-line, I think, is the single most important thing. And I don't want to be that guy, but there's going to be a time this season where we're going to struggle or we're going to falter on the O-line, whether it's just bad matchups, better scheming by someone. But the day or days, who knows, this season that our O-line struggles, it is going to be bad for us because of the way that we game plan, what our offense depends on. Our running backs are running backs. They're dependent on the line blocking, and we do not have a guy that can extend plays or a guy that really makes those high pressure, high decision throws consistently. And I am very happy from what I saw, but it's one of those, like, I'm really starting to notice that they're really, really good right now, but we're not playing that good of opponents. And I'm really starting to see a very well-defined single point of failure, what some people term like a critical vulnerability of this OU offense that can be schemed against. And I'm very worried that we might see a game down the season where someone really prepares well or really matches up well against our O-line, and we are struggling to even put points on the board, unfortunately. And I'm just trying to have sort of a different take.
Hey.
I agree with everything you guys said. They are excellent. They're the best part of the offense, but there's some deeper level, hey, let's think down the road here for a second. And it's not their fault. All they can do is continue to be the best, but we're really going to have to rely on them in some games.
Yeah, I think if you guys listen a little bit later in this episode, we're going to kind of clip this, but still do a K-State preview. If you're worried about a defensive lineman showing out and making us look bad, next week, look at Felix Anudike Uzoma, I think is how you pronounce it, the edge rusher for K-State. Man, he is scary. So if you're worried about like a defensive lineman making our offensive look bad, that's going to be a huge thing. But I'll talk a little bit more about that whenever we start talking about K-State. I say we start giving out game balls for the offense, Bobby, and mine's going to be a little bit different. I'm sure that y'all might go one direction, but I'm going to go Anton Harrison. I'm going to give the game ball to the best offensive lineman during their best game. We would have not had this performance with these 7 straight touchdown drives or whatever if it wasn't for our offensive line dominating. And I understand the opponents, the linebackers, the defensive line in Nebraska have not been that good. But it was such a fresh breath, like to finally have, a breath of fresh air to have a good game from our offensive line. And Anton Harrison, and they said this on the TV cast, this might have been one of his best games that he's ever had in his career.
Yeah, I believe I've heard Gabe Eichert excited about that as well. But no, absolutely worthy game ball right there for Harrison. I know it's easy. I know it's the obvious choice, but I'm going to go Eric Gray. I thought he was the best player on the field. Absolutely unstoppable, untouchable. And frankly, if Brent and crew wanted him to, he could have put up like a Heisman level day. That is how bad he just shredded Nebraska. He was undeniable. He was incredible. This was the star performance out of him that we've all wanted to see and all thought he was capable of. And it was thrilling to see in such a big environment in a big game. So give me Eric right there.
Yeah, for my offensive game ball, I think I'm going to go Gray is the obvious one, like you mentioned, but I do want to continue to change it up. And I will go, I wanted to sort of bend the rules, which we do on this podcast a little bit, and go with Jeff Levy for, scheming and well, right. He adjusted well.
Okay,
he schemed well. He wasn't afraid to put people in and experiment with matchups and get guys reps in different spots. Right. I had a whole spiel on it, but I don't want to change it up too much. I'll go Marcus Major just to keep it different. If you're just tuning in live, go back a few minutes. You'll hear us talk all about it. So no analysis needed. But that's my game ball. I do have one closing thought on the game, Bobby, so don't move on to K-State just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're listening to this on replay, we're trying something new. For our listeners live, though, we're going to do our K-State preview after this, but it won't be released until a little bit later. So if you're listening live, you're getting an early access to it. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But no, yeah, overall, I'm just going to give my final thoughts on this game just really quick. Overall, great performance in a tough road environment. They got punched in the mouth early, and OU's ability to recover, to show that poise for such a newly created unit, even though it's Nebraska, I was very impressed. I know it's just the Huskers. I know they're not very good, but if you see the trends, if you see just the overall feel for this team has, it's night and day compared to last year. This program is absolutely moving in the right direction. Very exciting stuff. And I think this is, to me, I feel like the ceiling has moved from just a Big 12 championship to potentially a college football playoff appearance. I'm starting to dream big again, boys. I know. Here I go again. I'm ready to be hurt.
Bobby.
I'm ready to be hurt. I think OU is that good. And specifically, who else is nobody else around college football is really that good.
Nobody else could beat Nebraska. Nobody else could beat Nebraska 49-14.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you look at other teams around college football just not quite looking.
I think it's very fair.
Like,
because they're playing
I think it's
better
Georgia
teams.
and a bunch of all right teams. I feel like OU, even in the bad performances, or sorry, even in these bad games, has looked stellar. And I am personally excited about it. And I think it's clear that there's still some ceiling to go. This team can still get better. There's room to grow. And I don't know. I see it. I see it. I feel it. I think this team could go very far. But then again, I've been very wrong before in the past. I thought we were going to win a national title last year. I was dead wrong there. But that's my thoughts on it. Great win. Awesome moment to be there. Absolutely loved every moment of it. And we'll definitely be trying to go back to Lincoln next time OU's there. Jameson, you're Ty, I want to give you do you want to go next, or do you want to?
It's real quick. But
you got it.
Our current place kicker, Zach Schmidt. Okay, he is, I'm sure, a great guy. He's an OKC guy. Went to Bishop McGinnis, right? I'm assuming he went to Bishop. We know how those people can be, but we loved him. And he is a chemical engineering major on the 5-year master track and has a 4.0. He's had a 4.0 the entire time he's been at OU, right? I don't need someone that I'm having to rely on for OU football that came here to play school, okay? It can't be, right?
Man.
I need him out there.
Oh, man.
I need him out there kicking, okay? It's because we need to cut this. He's probably the one true student athlete on the team. He's the one true student athlete on the team that is getting play time, and he is a kicker, but come on, right? We can pretend that people are student athletes and going to class and stuff. It's not what we need at this level of football and the level we're trying to get at, right? We need the dude that ain't come here to play school, that can't read, that has never stepped foot in Dale Hall, doesn't know what Dale Hall is, doesn't know where the biz is, doesn't know where the library is. The only thing he knows is where the freshman dorm is for athletes so that he can go there, where the freshman dorm is for non-athletes so that he can go there with people that he meets at the bars, and where the practice facility is, and where the bus picks him up, and where to eat, which is thankfully co-located with their dorms to keep it simple for them. I don't need a dude that's a 4.0 chemical engineering major taking master's classes and is like, oh, I'm going to be a contributing member to the GDP and make this nation a better place by paying my taxes and supporting everyone. If you're going to go miss field goals against Nebraska that are from like the 42 or something.
Oh, come on. You give these kickers.
He looked like a kid. He looked like the dude out there at halftime kicking for the Dr. Pepper free tuition.
No, it wasn't that.
I need a dude who is at OU. I need a Michael Honeycutt. I need a dude who's at OU.
Okay, that's
so that he can kick footballs and do meth at Picklemans. Okay.
Oh my God.
If he's gonna have a thing, have it be something that is not negative to his football career. I don't need a guy that's
Oh my
going to
God.
class, studying,
Okay.
getting a good major.
Is
right?
there any
I need
proof
them to have
that
a hobby.
there's no proof that the schoolwork was led to that kick. Here's my thing, and I'll say this, and I know this is a bit, but people who talk bad about kickers right after they miss one field goal gives me so much like anger, because if you are a true fan, don't be talking down to kickers. Do not be talking bad on them on social media and public outlets.
I'm not.
It only does negative, because the kicker is the most in his head position in all of football. And oh my God, if they start hearing it and they start thinking about that kick too much, it's just going to get worse. So the problem won't be the schoolwork. It'll be you, Ty. You'll be the problem.
Maybe he could just take a couple B's. It's okay.
You tell me he's reading. He's not on Twitter all day with a 4.0 as a chemical engineering major. If he doesn't even have time to kick, how is he going to have time to go read all these?
Gosh.
You can be on Twitter a lot.
That's the thing. Okay, right. And am I a fan? Kind of OU football, but I will never be a fan of anyone that went to Bishop McGinnis. I want that on the record, preserved for posterity.
There you go.
It needs to be preserved in continuum. I can barely tolerate the people that went to Heritage Hall. So yeah,
fair enough. All right, there we go. That's one way to. Jameson, any final words on Nebraska? Are we ready to move on?
No, I really hope that a lot of these people that were a little bit negative can find a little bit positive in this team now. I'm still skeptical, but I'm not negative of this team. I'm skeptical because I still have a lot to learn, but this defense, I'm buying in. I'm buying stock now.
Fair enough. Well, if you're listening live, we're going to be talking about K-State right now. If you're listening on replay, keep an eye for it in your pod feeds or check us out on YouTube. We usually get our more recent stuff out there first. So,
Bobby, we have 399 subscribers right now, and I know that there's 16 people watching this. Please, one of y'all, if you aren't subscribed yet, get us to 400.
We're right there, folks. Get us over that line. But yeah, so
we have 398 now.
Oh
goodness!
Did you just unsub, Ty?
I unsubbed so that I can teach our dear listeners how to grind harder. Now they must grind twice as hard. It is a life lesson.
Oh my God, I love it. Well, again, if you're listening on your on your podcast service of choice, thank you for listening. We'll see you in a couple days when we talk about K-State. Have a good one, Boomer Sooner. But if you're live, hey, good to see y'all. Let's talk about Kansas State. So that was my way of saving myself some work for the editing process. And I didn't change the header. So it's Kent State again, I guess. But Kansas. All right.
A K-State fan is going to get a hold of this.
Welcome to the Schooner Pod.
Welcome, Bobby. It's Groundhog Day, man. We get Kent State again.
Oh, Michael Cage.
Welcome to the Schooner Pod. We're breaking down the Kansas State game. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me, we got Jameson and Ty, as always. Just breaking down a quick one for you here. Kansas State, this was supposed to be a 3-0 game. You were supposed to go undefeated, but you had to screw up and lose to Tulane. How dare you? I believed in you. We all believed in you. We were rooting for you. And you go and lose to Tulane? Kansas State, what are you doing? Anyways, K-State's coming to Norman.
Bobby knew he's going to get roasted for K-State losing. It's going to get bad on the weekend spread. Oh, man, Blake is going to let into you. I still have a reminder on my phone about your Chris Kleiman take. They can
still finish third in the Big 12. They lost. The Tulane thing had nothing to do with that. Like, it does not hurt their conference record, thankfully. But, atrocious. But still, this is a Kansas State team that has given OU so many troubles in the past. Even though they have that loss, they're still dangerous. I think this is a big game. 7:00 under the lights. I'm thrilled. Jameson, what's your level of concern going into this Kansas State game? Are you worried about them at all, or do you think this is going to be a relatively easy test for the Sooners?
It's not going to be easy. Let's not dismiss them because they struggled versus Tulane and didn't look like the Kansas State of the first couple games that we saw. This team still has a potent running attack and offense. We can kind of make fun of Martinez, but Deuce Vaughn is an animal, and we're going to have to scheme very, very hard against him. He's going to be trouble for us, even if he doesn't have a good game. This is going to be a big test for us. As like I said last week, I wanted to learn a lot how this defense reacts to a high-end passing quarterback in Casey Thompson with two good wide receivers that are athletic and talented. Now we're going against one of the better running backs in the country in Deuce Vaughn, a guy that before that Tulane game was averaging like 130 yards per game, like something around there. I don't have the number in front of me, but it was about that. That this guy is going to test us. And I'm a little bit nervous about how it's going to go because when you play against that much talent, you never know how it's going to end.
So I also want to say this about Deuce Vaughn. I don't know if this is true at all, and I apologize if it's slander, but I don't know.
Here we go.
On the drive back, someone in the car mentioned to me that he actually had to leave the game at multiple occasions because he had diarrhea. And that's why he performed poorly.
That's not slander. That's just unfortunate.
It's speculation. Was he about to poop his pants? I don't really know.
Because give him a crap ton of Imodium before next game, and he'll be fine.
Not to dive too deep into this, not to wade into this, but Bobby, you what you said was kind of unclear, right? Because you said he left for diarrhea, but then you said, was he about to poop? So are we talking about
his name is Deuce?
Are we talking about he committed a diarrhea, or are we talking about intent to commit diarrhea? Because those are two different things.
We
don't want to is saying that we're accusing, we're not saying it's first degree, right? It could be third degree diarrhea. It could have been, in the heat of the moment, okay, so to speak, legally, but intent to commit diarrhea is different than actually committing diarrhea, regardless of the degree.
So, yeah,
we need Blake. We need our legal analyst here. And then, if he did commit diarrhea, was it first degree diarrhea? So to speak.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know. Who knows about if he pooped or not? He might have pooped.
I'm just going to flat out and just stomp this right now. I'm not seeing anything on Twitter if you type in Deuce Vaughn diarrhea
neither
or
am I,
Deuce Vaughn poop. This is just, I think it's just because his name is Deuce, and I think you've just led everyone astray here.
Well, no, it is a real thing I heard.
Maybe you telephone game this.
Your sources have been rough today, Bobby.
Maybe you telephone game this,
to be fair.
Right? Well, you said this. Was this the same source as earlier? Was this Thomas?
Maybe,
maybe. But maybe you might be telephone gaming this situation. Is it the same as the chess guy? Was there sort of a device in the southern region of Deuce Vaughn that was maybe signaling him illegally, such as in the chess? I'm not sure if you guys are familiar. I'm sure some of our listeners are familiar with the current chess scandal occurring. Bobby, no, I'm not joking. Bobby, just right now, if you go to Google and Google chess cheating scandal and click news, you will see what I'm talking about. I'm sure our listeners are familiar, but there was a signaling device in, say, the southern regions of someone that was maybe potentially cheating.
I don't know about that, but
you're saying he got probed.
I'm saying maybe that is so we're previewing K-State. We'll get right back on track. K-State offensively, will they be cheating by signaling through devices in their southern regions that can maybe vibrate in code? Yeah, Bobby, so that is a thing that they are known to do. Yeah, Bobby, we need to
take the Astros it's like the Astros sign stealing.
God, we really need to get back. But yes, honestly, Deuce Vaughn, I think we're going to completely have to scheme against him and just focus on him. I do not believe at all in that K-State passing attack. Adrian Martinez has showed it this whole year. This guy can't even pass for over 150 yards. I don't know what he ended with in the Tulane game, but it seems like that's where he's been hovering around. I'm not scared of him passing the ball.
Exactly 150.
Yes. Okay. So they haven't passed for over 151 yards. So we need to make sure that Deuce Vaughn's not going to be the guy that beat us. And even if we do scheme for him, he's going to have some plays where he slips around. That's just how he is. That's what happens when you're 5'6". He's going to make those plays. But make Adrian Martinez beat you. Let our D-backs show that they have the ability to go one-on-one in coverage. I understand we've been playing a lot of zone, but let's dial up some blitz. Let's do some run blitzes and make K-State beat us through the air.
Yeah, and I feel like, when you have a home game like that and a crowd like that, you die, like you said, you bring the pressure, you go hard, you go fast, and you make them feel that early. And like you said, Vaughn is like that. he feels like a guy who just kills OU. And he did. He has killed us in the past because he's short, he's slippery. He's just like it's like a little clone of Quentin Griffin out there just murdering us. And, OU just, I'm fine with scheming against him because you're right. Adrian Martinez has not been impressive. I'll admit that. He has looked rough. I don't think they have, really solid receivers either. I guess it's just like Malik Knowles and that's it. So yeah, no, I'm with Richard Young in the comments. Yeah, you shut down Deuce Vaughn and just hope, and then yeah, everything else will just kind of come through. I agree with that. Ty, your thoughts on Martinez?
Yeah, so Adrian Martinez, I think he's in a better system than he was at Nebraska. I wish him the best. Obviously, Adrian Martinez, if you didn't know and you couldn't read in from good test taking skills, just transferred to K-State this year from Nebraska. But yeah, Deuce Vaughn is the real talent of that offense, certainly. And he's a guy that, like you said, he cuts us up. He's a little dude, but he's quick. It's like you're trying to game plan against Baby Yoda out there, except he has smaller ears. Maybe he has smaller ears. We don't know. I've never seen him without a helmet.
Okay. I definitely said last week that I was going to cut certain things that you said, but that is definitely going to be the clip, and I'm going to make sure I do that.
Yeah. So we are the bad guys in this situation, but we are the bad guys in Star Wars, the Imperials, and we are we're having a game against Baby Yoda, but he's not being protected by the helmet guy, and he's not being protected by Luke Skywalker, and this isn't Disney Plus. So we're probably just going to punch him in the face and then win by 30 something.
Like
but that is the threat. Yeah. And really the thing that worries me the most about K-State is the fact that, and our live listeners that have been listening, sort of the early access, and then the people that listened to our previous review of Nebraska will note that K-State has a kicker who is not a 4.0 engineering major. He's just majoring in like general business and just barely scraping along. So they will be able to make the kick if it comes down to that.
Oh my God, they've made kicks versus us in the past.
I checked it, and this is not Bobby. This is not Bobby. Someone told me in the car. Like I did some deep dive analysis to figure out this kid's major.
But give me this. Let's go back to 2014 OU Kansas State at home. Who was the kicker for OU, and what was the reason we lost? K-State kicked a field goal for the win because we missed an absolute, what was it, like a 25-yarder or some crap like that?
It was a chip shot.
What is occurring right now?
Baby. I didn't know. I had no idea what Bobby
There's Danny Stutzman right there. Yeah, punch him right in the face. That's Danny Stutzman. But anyways, shout out to Onion Burgers being half of Bobby's YouTube recommended.
I
need to go back and blur that out.
I saw.
We have some like Lego. We have a Lego Star Wars video on there. Random like Arsenal Brentford match highlights.
Hey,
damn! Just had to put me on blast like that, man. That's tricky.
No, that's a good thing. I said that as a segue into you mentioning that you host a tailgate at the OU games. But thanks.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about what do you guys want to see from the OU's defensive side of the ball, and then we'll kind of talk about what we want to see from the offensive side of the ball after that. I think the defense side of the ball, really for me, and I kind of hinted at it, is I think the defensive line obviously needs to do their part in stopping Deuce Vaughn, but I want to see the linebackers play well again, and we saw that last week in Nebraska. I think Danny Stutzman needs to have a big game and needs to get a lot of tackles. And I think Deshaun White at the cheetah position, he's going to play the whole game. He did not get suspended for the first half because it occurred right at the end of the second quarter. So he's not going to lose any time because of his targeting. I think that he needs to have a big game as well. Those guys that are running around, plugging up the gaps will be big in stopping this rushing attack for K-State.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's key. It's going to come down to that defense because I think K-State, outside of, we were talking about that edge rush guy that they had in the last pod. Outside of that,
was a Buki or a Doki, something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think they're that tricky. obviously they held Tulane to 17, but I don't know, just completely shut K-State's defense or offense down. That's a win. If Tulane can hold them to 10, I feel confident.
Anaduki Uzoma. I completely just botched that name. I combined it with NBA names, but I guess what are we now? A first name pod?
I don't think we're just bad at names at this point. Which, speaking of names, I can't not keep looking at Tulane's roster right now. Some of these names just wild. Shout out to DD McDougal, their wide receiver. They have a guy named Lawrence Keys. So like a weird flip of Key Lawrence. Some guy with the first name of Lummy. I don't know. Wild stuff.
We've been so far off this podcast, but it's been so much fun. Ty, do you have anything that you're expecting from the defense come Saturday night?
I do. Yeah, specifically the defense. And now we're going to dive into some actual previews. Something that I've been talking about, if you go back and listen to our previous episodes, which if you haven't, I encourage you to. I promise it'll be worth your time if you enjoy this. But I've been talking about how our schedule this year, and I mentioned this heavily in our Nebraska recap. Our schedule this year, I'm viewing as it's two halves of the season, and I think the first half of the season is very much, I would almost say, a curriculum leading up to OU Texas. OU Texas is our bowl game, is our championship, is our everything halfway through the year. And I talked about with our first two games being sort of just easing into everything. We had our very easy opponent. We had our a little bit more difficult opponent. And then in facing Nebraska, obviously a lot of extenuating circumstances, but defensively, what we were presented was a bit more of an air threat. And what we're being presented against Kansas State here this coming weekend is our first sort of introduction to a very ground-heavy, ground-dependent threat. And that's going to be our key. And just I'll dive a little bit more into that. And then I think, obviously, the week after this, we play TCU. And I think that's where we sort of have our culminating practice exercise against a more complete team that should really hopefully segue us really nicely, low risk of injury. We eased into everything, rolling into our big game of the year against Texas. But this game, like I alluded to, this is our let's really focus. We can really lean in, stop the run threat, get reps in, practicing against a run threat here. And I think another thing that K-State is going to present to us that we haven't really had presented against us this year is, and I'm not trying to dive into the Bobby sort of Chris Kleiman is the best coach in the Big 12 take, like he said. If you go tune in, I don't know what episode, but there was an episode, and he can't, if he wants to disprove me, he can name the specific episode and timestamp off of his head to disprove me. But Bobby did say at one point that Chris Kleiman was the best coach in the Big 12.
Best in the Big 12. By 2024, I said he was better than Dave Aranda.
No, you said he is the best coach in the Big 12, and he will be coaching the Dallas Cowboys by 2025.
Okay, well, I'll go in and find the timestamp.
So Thomas told me. So it must be true.
My God.
But in all seriousness, I think what we're going to see from K-State is the first team that can really make adjustments to us. I think pure talent to talent, we outmatch them. I think if you really look at it empirically, anything can happen in college football, but we outmatch them in every way. But I think what we're really going to see from K-State is a team that can make real adjustments and maybe make some stuff happen against us. Adrian Martinez is no slouch as a quarterback. I don't want to discredit him. He's been in a bad system, and he still doesn't necessarily have the best tools, but he can make some stuff happen if he's given the right circumstances. And Deuce Vaughn is not the end-all be-all of running backs, but he has proven to really perform well. So I think we're going to see a really strong run threat, but I think defensively, specifically, we're really going to see our first offense of the year that can maybe make some adjustments. And even if it doesn't work, they're going to present different things to us, and we're going to have to be on our toes and make some adjustments throughout the game. And I think ultimately it's going to be a good thing for us down the road. Again, that curriculum schedule.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think it's definitely a big challenge still, and definitely massively important for the defense because, like you said, it's an upgrade over Nebraska by far. This Kansas State team might not be that great after what we saw, with Tulane, but we know how weird and tricky they can be. Tulane still has Michael Pratt, a name that, automatically sends shivers down my spine. But no, this is a big step for the defense, and I think they'll show up and be ready. This is Brent Venables' alma mater, so hopefully there's not a weird Lon Kruger like connection where he can't beat K-State, but I think we'll be okay. Offensively, like I mentioned, I think not too concerned. I'm not too concerned either. So Jameson, what are you kind of looking at overall? We haven't really talked about offense. What are you looking at offensively for the Sooners to really shine?
It's definitely going to be Dylan Gabriel's ability to make decisions faster. I think he's still holding on to the ball for too long. We saw it a little bit in the first half versus Nebraska. He had a couple of coverage sacks, and I think it's the pass blocking for sure. We talked about it. K-State has a pass rush where it can be dangerous. They have a guy that could be drafted and be high in the draft. I think I saw one mock draft had him going in the first round. So this is serious talent that we're going against, and we haven't had to face that yet in terms of a pass rush. Can Dylan Gabriel still sit back in the pocket and take his sweet merry time and let those, receivers get open? Or does he have to make his decisions a little bit quicker? Let's see if he continues to improve as he's been doing just gradually every single game. I'm expecting him to take a bigger step. I think in terms of grading, he was about an 82 grade game one. Then he went up to like an 85 and he went to an 88 last game. Let's see if he can have an A game where he doesn't make too many mistakes, puts up 3 or 4 touchdowns and shuts down Kansas State. That's definitely what I'm looking at come Saturday night.
Yeah, definitely. Like that progression, getting better, at operating it as a whole, getting rid of those, kind of smaller inefficiencies that, by the time we get to the Baylors, the Oklahoma States, Red River in a couple weeks, that's only 3 weeks away. Those type of things can kill you in close games. Thankfully, OU hasn't had that issue, but I think eliminating those will be key. And, I gotta say, shout out in the comments, Richard Young, we haven't turned the ball over yet once this year, have we? Other than turnover.
Yeah. Oh, like garbage time. We had a fumble. We had
I thought we fumbled.
We had a fumble last week. We had a fumble last week in the, I think, late third, but it was like our 4th string running back. I don't recall his name.
Oh, okay.
We have not had an interception, though.
Davis Bevel lost the fumble.
Yeah.
So that, but anyways.
Dylan Gabriel not getting a turnover is good. That's good. But good Absolutely. Quarterbacks, yes, just do the bare minimum. In 88%, that's pretty good grade. I'm very happy with that. But he's not an A yet until he starts making his difference and, trimming off some of that mistakes. But yeah, Ty, what do you think about the offense coming into this game on Saturday?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit more. I'm not as optimistic as you guys, but in not a bad way. I don't think I'm going to see. I think there might be some little improvements. I expect to see a gradual improvement in the O-line every single week, barring injuries, like I mentioned. I expect to see a gradual improvement in timing and sort of that chemistry between a quarterback and his receivers, between Dylan Gabriel and our various receivers week by week. And I expect to see our playbook expanding week by week, even just minimally. And we might not see it on the field. We might not end up calling those plays, but new things are being introduced. And you have to keep in mind the situation that these coaches and this coaching staff took over in. We're still in very much our rebuilding year. They just took over. We're dealing with a lot of patchwork situations, and we have a ton of tremendous talent. We have a ton of tremendous coaches, but this is not the built system. This is we're cooking with leftovers here with this team, and that almost sort of diminishes what it is. We're trying to make something tremendous occur with volunteers, so to speak, instead of sort of recruited and refined paid employees. We're in the startup stages of this, to just throw out as many analogies as possible. But in short, I don't really expect there to be anything noticeable. If anything, I think it might realistically. I don't think we're in any danger of this even being a close game. It'll be a double-digit game. Are we going to cover? We'll get into that this Wednesday on the weekend spread. But It'll be a double-digit game. I don't think we're on upset alert. I don't think it's going to be close or risky, but I think a lot of people, if they don't really look at it objectively, might step away from this thinking that offensively we've taken a step back, because I think we're going to be seeing, and K-State is no slouch, but again, they're not that impressive. We've been playing some of the least impressive teams out there, at least statistically right now. I think a lot of people might look at this and say, oh, OU's taking a step back. Things aren't that good. We've been averaging 500 plus yards of offense a game, which is crazy when you really look at it. I don't know that we're really going to be looking at this offense come next Sunday or Monday when we do the recap and saying, oh, we took vast steps forward. I think we will take a step forward regardless, but I don't know if it'll be noticeable, and it might almost look like we didn't, but we're cranking up the heat. OU is the lobster in the pot right now, and we are that pot is boiling even more, and one of you guys is going to have to start talking here. This analogy is going to get worse.
Fair enough.
I just couldn't stop thinking of this meme that I saw the other night where it was what the lobsters that hadn't been cooked yet but we're still alive, we're on the Titanic, we're feeling like, and I just laughed so hard. These lobsters got their freedom. Okay, this is turning bad. This is what happens when you go an hour and a half straight. But yes, please, Bobby, take over for me.
An hour and a half straight with one of the three people having just driven back from Lincoln, like a 7-hour drive off, like no sleep, because O Street is fun. Street,
Bobby, I can tell you're losing your voice too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I yelled pretty hard at that game, so it was pretty fun. Great time. Definitely recommend it.
Bobby, real quick, if I were one of the lobsters on the Titanic, and I just such an improbable thing had just occurred, what the first thing I would do is that's like a ridiculously lucky. I'd be feeling lucky. I would go immediately sign up for DraftKings with promo code TPPN.
Oh yeah.
And look at some daily fantasy and whatever is legal in my state. And you know what? I would get that promo code. I'd get some free gambling money, and I'd probably win, because I think they have some specials going
13,
you can check out it in the bio, and I'd get some wins, and I would go on over to Raycon and get some Raycon headphones. Again, promo code TPPN. That's what I would do if I were a 15. Lobster.
Wow.
Yeah, if I were to get 15% off, that's luckier than being a lobster on the Titanic, is getting 15% off some Raycon headphones.
Wow. I mean, a deal like that is, like 1 in 2 million, just like the odds of finding a blue lobster in the wild. So,
okay, we're just talking about Facebook videos now. All in all,
the lobster is real. The blue lobster is real, but anyways, no, like
if you want more of our thoughts on K-State, definitely I will go more in depth come weekend spread. So if y'all are listening right now, I know that we had a couple of people hit us to get over 400 subscribers. I know we got 25 viewers right now. Hit subscribe if you aren't already, and we'll talk more about the K-State betting line. -13 for OU at home versus a team coming off a loss to Tulane. Is that delicious? Is that a little bit spicy? We'll be talking about that on Wednesday.
I'm excited. So make sure to check that out in the coming days when we bring on our pal Bowden Blake. But guys, I think that's all we have for Kansas State. What do y'all think? We good to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I think we really hit it. Offensive line is the biggest group on offense I'm looking at, and then defense is going to be the linebackers.
Absolutely. Yep. Ty, you good? Final thoughts?
Yeah, guys, this was an emotional, sort of casual, fun podcast. We like to ride on the vibes sometimes. We like to mix in some hard stats and stuff, but we like to ride on the vibes and feeling and having a good time. So we would love any and all feedback, positive or negative. Please look to leave us a review or hit us up with some feedback, however you see fit. We truly do appreciate all of it, as long as it's serious, and we appreciate it if it's not serious, as long as it's funny.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so sincerely much for your time and for supporting what we love to do. And we really look forward to this game. Quick mention, I got to sell it again. If you're on the fence whether or not to go to this game, it's going to be the most competitive game all year. I think we're firmly going to win it. We have a sunset time of 7:27. Really good weather. The game kicks off at 7. if you have not seen the new LED lights and the atmosphere in the stadium after dark, it is so worth it. I don't want to Google it right now, but I would assume that tickets are not too terribly much. I think you can still,
They
if you
were
do
the
not
other
have
day.
tickets. Okay, well, it might be worth it either way. You never know how many night games we're gonna have left. The opening of conference play, I think the lights being so cool and the atmosphere being so cool last week maybe bumped up the price of these tickets for people that had FOMO or wanted to come see it.
These are
It
expensive
was
right now.
truly okay. Well, so it might still be worth it. I would encourage you. I don't know what the ticket price is. I guess they're expensive.
Like 100 a
if you're
pop, pretty
if
much.
it's
100 to
if
get
it's
in.
okay, well, if it's in your budget and you're on the fence, I would. I don't know if this is going to be a deciding factor for anyone listening, but I would implore you to very seriously consider it. It is so cool. It's such a tremendous value add to OU's stadium atmosphere, and it is great at retaining people in the stadium. Everywhere was full. People wanted to see it. People stay for it. Just the entertainment production value is great, and I think our Sooners are going to perform stellarly. I don't know if that's even a word in our opening of conference play here against the purple Dallas Cowboys from Kansas.
Fair enough. I'm with you. I think it's going to be a really great atmosphere. I'm thrilled. I'm excited. So can't wait to get back at it at the home place. So, all right, for me, Jameson and Ty, this has been the Schooner Pod preview of Oklahoma and Kansas State. We will see you in the coming days when we pick the full slate on the weekend spread with Boat and Blake. So, all right, that's all we got for today. Have a good rest of your week. Boomer Sooner, everyone.